The political decisions people make will affect many lives. Many people see politics as the government and the laws being made. While that is true, it's way more complicated than that.
I don't know what type of procedure is this.
Some of you may be aspiring to positions of leadership in the political arena.
And I accepted full responsibility.
But the question is, why do you want to lead?
It has everything to do with you. Every law that is made will impact many. Sometimes the decisions do affect people negatively. Therefore, it's very important to note that every vote that you cast will either break or make people. Politics with GA brings you the latest political news as well as insight and analyst as we discuss the most important issues that matter. Hello and welcome to Politics with GA. President Muhammadu Buhari, the presidential candidate of the All Progressive Congress, has been endorsed by the United Progressive Party, UPP, for the 2019 general elections. UPP on Tuesday said its National Working Committee decided to endorse President Buhari as its presidential candidate in 2019 after evaluation of all options. Mr. Kive Kokori, the national chairman of the party, said the president's sincerity, uprightness and credibility was among the yardsticks considered before arriving at its decision. We wonder how many more political parties would endorse President Buhari for the 2019 elections. The immediate past National Publicity Secretary of the All Progressive Congress, Mr. Timi Frank, has asked the national chairman of the party, Comrade Adams Oshiomhole, to clear his name concerning the allegations of bribery and corruption leveled against him. The Department of State Services recently interrogated the APC chairman over allegations of receiving $55 million from some party members to allegedly influence the decisions of the National Working Committee in their favor. Mr. Frank said until proper investigation and clearance were given to Comrade Oshiomhole, he should not criticize the opposition People's Democratic Party or the policy document of its presidential candidate Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. He said this while reacting to a statement credited to Mr. Oshiomhole, who reportedly criticized the PDP presidential candidate's policy document, especially as regards job creation. Mr. Timi Frank said his comments on Atiku's policy documents and his adamant stance that Senate President Bukola Saraki should resign are diversionary because Nigerians would not forget his ordeal in the hands of the DSS. The governorship candidate of the All Progressive Congress in Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, on Tuesday said there was no rancor between him and the state governor, Mr. Akinwumi Ambode, obviously referring to the recent scathing remarks about him by the governor. Akinwumi Ambode, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu said the duo meet and talk regularly. He said on the Ambode issue, let me state it, there is no Ambode issue. He's my governor, we're one party and our goals are the same. A better and greater Lagos is our challenge. The governorship candidate said on Twitter, there is no rancor, we meet, we talk, we are clear about what Lagos needs to excel, and that is our collective goal. He added, Governor Akinwumi Ambode had in September accused Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu of undergoing rehabilitation at the Gbenga General Hospital in Lagos, saying the then governorship aspirant was unfit of ruling Lagos. Despite this, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu had emerged as the governorship candidate of the party in the state based on the support he received from the mandate movement of the Lagos APC and that of the national leader of the party, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Mr. Ambode, who lashed out at his then opponent after failing to secure the backing of the mandate movement for a second term, had said the aspirant that is being put up to contest against me, referring to Mr. Sanwo-Olu, is not a fit person and proper person to take this job. However, in the form CF001 he submitted to the Independent National Electoral Commission, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu debunked Governor Ambode's allegations, saying he has never at any time been adjudged to be of unsound mind. A former president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Dr. Olisa Agbakogba, says President Muhammadu Buhari's administration is the worst in the history of Nigeria. Dr. Agbakogba, who is one of the leaders of the National Intervention Movement, described the last 4 years under President Buhari as locust years, saying the coalition of united political parties were determined to save the country by bringing the APC reign to an end. He said with youth unemployment so high, inflation at about 18%, borrowing requirement or interest rate at about 22%, nothing is working, so something needs to be done to reclaim it. Dr. Agbakogba said he believes that if the presidential elections hold today, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar will win. He, however, expressed the fear that President Muhammadu Buhari, if defeated, might not be willing to relinquish power. The lawyer who spoke with newsmen on Tuesday in Lagos also decried the presence of the service chiefs at the launch of the President Buhari's re-election campaign on Sunday. I spoke with Mr. Kive Kokori, a public affairs analyst, on his assessment of the Buhari administration and other issues. What's your assessment of Nigeria's 19 years of uninterrupted democratic experience following decades of continuous military rule?
Well, it's always based on history. Participatory democracy is basically the best form of governance. And as you said, Nigeria has had uninterrupted democracy for the last 18, 19 years. I would say we haven't reached the promised land yet, but obviously we are progressing.
You say there's motion?
Yeah, there's motion, but the motion is probably slower than it should be based on the fact that, there's so many examples in the world we could actually draw from. But unfortunately, because of inherent, possibly because we've been in military rule for so long and, things have been done wrong, it's taken quite a while for us to get used to actually doing things, following due process and, doing things the right way. But I think, we are actually moving.
Okay. Now, it's barely 3 months to the presidential elections in 2019. What's your view of the two main contenders, the incumbent President Buhari and the front runner for the People's Democratic Party, former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar? Which of these candidates do you think will bring about the much desired succor for long-suffering Nigerians? Or do you think is one of those outsiders?
Unfortunately, the kind of democracy we run in Nigeria is money-driven. And you also have to have a party that has structures all over the country. And Nigeria is quite a big and diverse country. So that's why we're mainly focused on the two main political parties, which is the APC and the PDP. Not because they have the best candidates, but because they have the structure that can win elections.
But never in the history of Nigeria we had up to 25 candidates contesting for the highest office in the land. Do you think this might disrupt the duopoly of APC and PDP in any way?
I don't want to live in La La Land. We're in Nigeria, so you can't win elections if you don't have, for example, agents all over the polling units in Nigeria, and very few of these parties can afford to do that.
Yeah, it takes money to
not
mobilize.
Because their candidate is not good enough, but because that's the structure we're talking about. So let's be more realistic. Even in America, where you have, so many people contesting elections, you realize that the two major parties are just the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. In fact, for me, based on the previous experience during the Babangida era, although it didn't allow that to go through, I actually think Nigeria would be better if we have just two main political parties, a little to the right and a little to the left. So that way we would have ideology-based politics rather than what we have now, where people just, wake up today they're in one party, the next day they're in another party. So it's not ideology-driven. It's basically driven by interest. People just want to win elections. Whatever, vehicle they can use in winning elections, that's what's important to them. So for me, I think looking at what's on ground, definitely it's between Alhaji Atiku Abubakar and the incumbent president, Muhammadu Buhari.
Okay. Now, most countries, Nigeria is an oil-producing country since oil was discovered in Oleguri in the late 1950s. We've made billions and billions of dollars, and this has not translated into a better life for most Nigerians. But now the world is moving technology beyond oil. Norway is projected to use renewable energy sources as its number one energy in its energy mix in a few years' time. Even the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has a Vision 2030 plan looking beyond oil. The federal government has been throwing around this term diversification, diversification, diversification. How would you rate its diversification efforts? Are we slowly removing ourselves from our dependency on oil for foreign exchange receipts?
To be candid, I think this is actually the first time we have a government that is actually walking the talk. Because, all previous governments, they always say it, we want to diversify, but they never do. They're always so focused on oil. Although up till now, our main revenue earner is still oil. But you could still see that, this government is trying to move things towards agriculture, towards manufacturing, although it's slow. But, some of the things I've seen, like an example, there's this young lady whom I know, who you would say, there's a term, they say like slay queens, yes. That you would actually categorize as such a person. But recently I saw her and I realized she's now, doing a business. She's packaging Gary. She's kind of like pimped it up and the packaging and she's selling it. So that should tell you that people are beginning to see agriculture, for example, as not something just for the people in the villages and people that are not, well-read and upwardly mobile. People are beginning to think outside the box. And why is that the case? Because there's no free money out there the way it used to be. You understand? Years back, there used to be so much free money in circulation because there was so much stealing going on. I'm not saying there's no stealing going on now, but people are beginning to refocus. So for a Nigerian government, I think this is a beginning, although we're slow with it, because I would say the discovery of oil in Nigeria actually is supposed to be a blessing, but somehow it's one of our major curses because we focus so much on that free money that just comes in rather than actually using our brains, which we do have because Nigeria has solid human capital.
Yeah, Nigerians excel, do very well when they have the opportunities abroad. You've mentioned something of the recurring theme in the course of our interview so far. You talked about slow. If you look at all the indices of human development and healthy living, we're in the bottom rung. Shouldn't there be a sense of urgency from previous governments and even the present government to do something about it? Because we seem to be very relaxed about the way things are. Is it a fault of the government, or is it does the problem? Will you put the blame on the people?
It's both the fault of the people and the government. They always say a government is a reflection of its people. So definitely, if there was a sense of urgency amongst Nigerians, then the government would actually be put on their toes. But the thing is, we all know government actually shows leadership. So which means a government can galvanize the people and make them, more productive. True. So they can create an enabling environment where people can actually be able to excel,
They drive policies too.
Correct. But unfortunately in Nigeria up till now, the little things, and most of the world have gone beyond, things like power. We're still struggling with them. These are things we've been struggling with in the 60s. And now in 2018, we're still struggling with these things, And it's quite difficult for a country to grow when the basic infrastructures are not working. When they're epileptic, it's almost impossible. The roads, we're still dealing with building roads today.
I mean, we're on that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, so basic needs of human existence, shelter, food, clothing.
It's a shame.
And now, let's move on to this. According to the Global Fuel Price Index, Nigerians and Nigerians pay the second cheapest fuel in the world. Money can be used to develop infrastructure, and education is kept on keeping it this low. My question to you is this: there's a contention whether there's a subsidy or not. If there is subsidy, and is this sustainable? Are we going to keep paying so low for our fuel?
The government claimed they were going to take away subsidy, and now they've given it a different nomenclature called under recovery. So, which means when they bring in the fuel, they tend to depending on the difference, they tend to pay the difference, but they don't call it.
Yeah,
subsidy.
it's just semantics. It's
but the thing is,
yeah,
I believe in one thing. I believe if people have something, they should definitely pay less for it. It's like, in your home, for example, maybe your father has a farm, and you would not expect that you would buy the yam that comes out of that farm as somebody, outside. So it's understood. I can understand that. No. What I'm saying is, the reason why you would not burden Nigerians so much, why you would want to subsidize, is because so many other infrastructures, so many other services, like transportation, for example, the cost of those things are extremely high because the roads are bad, it's so difficult for people to be able to afford to get, to buy a vehicle for transportation. Government is not providing enough. So there's so much burden on the ordinary Nigerian. When you now add the cost of petrol to that, especially when almost everything revolves around it, it makes it almost impossible for the Nigerian to live. I'm not saying we should not deregulate completely, but I expect that some certain things should be there.
It should go hand in hand.
Do you understand? Before you actually deregulate completely. But think about it. Nigeria is paying 140 whatever for petrol now compared to what we're paying, 3-4 years ago. So you actually would not say we've sat on a particular price. But after the increase, how much difference can you see in the lives of Nigerians?
Very true. Now, concerned stakeholders in the oil and gas industry, legal professionals have raised concerns over President Buhari's refusal to assent to the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill. Two questions. Why is the president stalling on this? And number two, is the Petroleum Industry Bill the silver bullet to solve all the problems in the petroleum industry?
I wouldn't know why he's stalling on it, but I know that the bill was divided into 3 different bills. The governance bill, the one that has to do with the, what is it called? The host community, and another one, I can't remember the third one. But I know the other 2 have not been passed. The governance bill, why he's stalling, I don't know. But based on what a lot of people have said, although I've not gone into studying the bills, and what they actually entail. But a lot of people have said, this is something that would revolutionize the oil industry in Nigeria and the way business is done in that industry. And that it would also help Nigerians. There'll be more local content in terms of more Nigerians being in the industry rather than foreigners. And for me, I believe that the fact that this thing has stalled for so long, I know Nigerians they're always so bothered about protecting the interest of that very few. Yeah. So the fact that it stalled for so long, in my head, I just feel there must be something to
that's
it.
What
and
it
that's why like. They're not passing the bill.
NNPC as the national ATM.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, finally, campaigns officially kicked off on Sunday. What issues should be in the front burner of political discourse as we inch towards the 2019 elections?
There's so many issues. We have issues of security, we have issues of the economy, we have issues of unemployment, human capital development, and a whole lot of infrastructure and a whole lot of stuff. But for me, I think I'm a bit happy this time around compared to before, because I think they're beginning to dwell on issues more than a whole lot of mundane things like they used to do in the past. This is the first time the two major contenders would actually come out with a policy document. You understand? A policy document that would make Nigerians have a view of where they want to go if they're voted into office. You understand? Unlike before, where what they just dwell on is the manifesto of the party, which is so generic. So this is the first time you can actually tell where this candidate, what he's thinking, how he wants to, move Nigeria, what direction he's going to and all that. So I think for me, it's a huge start. You understand? And I'm also happy that, Nigerian electoral process is getting more pushed towards technology. That reduces, the rigging of elections and a whole lot of those things that used to happen in the past, So the electoral process is going to get better. 2019, I believe, it's even going to get
Now, how should the ordinary Nigerian engage politicians? Because we know what campaigns mean in Nigeria. A lot of campaigns, beyond the debate part, or when the candidates get the opportunity to sit there with the press and ask interviews, it's almost a musical jamboree. They're dancing, they're sharing the charge cards and things and face caps, and these politicians just sit there on the stage and promise heaven and earth, and the ordinary people don't get a chance to engage.
Unfortunately, the Nigerian electorate, majority of the Nigerian electorate is still unsophisticated. When I say unsophisticated, you are holding a tab. You have access to internet. Very few people have access to that. So
and they're the majority.
Yeah. So even the engagement on social media, on all these TV debates, that's why you find out that some of the candidates actually don't even attend the debates, because the debate does not have that much impact on the elections. The reason is that majority of the people who vote are the people who are in the grassroots, the people who don't even have access to electricity, they're uneducated. So they have people like a Baba that directs them, that this is where you have to go. That's why you realize that it's the party that has the largest structure, the largest money bags, the largest, big men in the society that wins elections. So this engagement is good. We're having them now. At least the people that are, aware are beginning to task these candidates and, are beginning to ask them what they would do, how you're going to do it, and how you're going to get the funding to do it. But unfortunately, as I said, we've not reached the stage where that actually affects the majority of the people who vote. But it's a start. It's always good to start something rather than not start at all. So I think for me, it's progress.
The Turkish Foreign Minister, Mevlut Cavusoglu, said on Tuesday that Turkey is not entirely satisfied with the level of cooperation it's receiving from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia over the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, and may seek a formal United Nations inquiry over the issue if its liaison with Riyadh comes to an impasse. Speaking to reporters in Washington after meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Mr. Mike Pompeo, Mr. Cavusoglu said Turkey had shared the latest information on the Khashoggi killings with the United States and repeated Ankara's stance that the truth had to come out on who gave the orders to kill the journalist. Turkey's foreign minister also said Turkey and the United States have discussed returning a jailed executive from state-owned lender Hull Bank to Turkey, where he can serve the rest of his sentence from an Iran sanctions-busting case. Mr. Jamal Khashoggi, a United States-based Washington Post columnist who was a critic of the Saudi government run by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, was killed in October at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Kenyan parliamentarians on Tuesday debated a bill that would allocate a third of all seats in parliament to women, with campaigners optimistic that it would pass in spite of previous failures. Women hold 23% of seats in Kenya's lower and upper houses of parliament combined, says the Inter-Parliamentary Union. Women make up only a third of 2.5 million people employed in the formal sector, says Kenya's National Bureau of Statistics. And while women provide 80% of Kenya's farm labor, they own only 1% of agricultural land. This arrangement is on a par with the global average, but lower than neighbors Rwanda, Ethiopia, and Burundi. Thanks for watching Politics with GA. Until next time, I'm Gbenga Aborowa. The political decisions people make will affect many lives. Many people see politics as the government and the laws being made. While that is true, it's way more complicated than that.
I don't know what type of procedure is this.
Some of you may be aspiring to positions of leadership in the political arena.
And I accepted full responsibility.
But the question is, why do you want to lead?
It has everything to do with you. Every law that is made will impact many. Sometimes the decisions do affect people negatively. Therefore, it's very important to note that every vote that you cast will either break or make people. Politics with GA brings you the latest political news as well as insight and analyst as we discuss the most important issues that matter.